No, I've been chewed off that one before. Yeah, yeah.
Me and my percentage, yeah, let me see.
That's the common space bathroom, yeah. Sometimes I go, because they'll close off our bathroom. Yeah. I was like, that must be a real slow day, because you came out of your office and everything. But
Hopefully
they
it's
put
here,
extra stuff
and maybe
down
then I
there.
can just
So I was like,
resend it.
I work so much. Okay.
Saving time on the ground. And we'll see what happens. It's okay.
Have to have you back in the building.
If it wants to open it as a PDF.
Is it a PowerPoint?
Yeah.
And then can you go to your downloads?
I'm updating from the beer can building.
Okay, you have it. I'm not a type person, so.
All the way back then.
We're still. She wasn't too sure.
Oh, is it, there's a couple, Rachel or Lindsay?
She's like,
They get downloads on the
Save.
She does property management.
Okay, right click on it. And say, open. Look at me, I'm like, I need reading glasses. I'm like, I need like,
Open it in a new
Yeah.
window.
it's weird,
Can you
is
open
it
the file?
zip file?
Yeah.
You guys start, I'm gonna figure it out from here, and if not, I
You can
can
send
sit
it after
it
the
after and just talk to where we are. Yes, with the project.
All right, we're good.
Okay. Sorry.
Oh, no.
Well, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order at 5:33 PM. And we'll start with roll call. I just asked you how to say this, Sean. Sean Fairweeden. Casey Bauer.
Here.
Dustin Pasteur.
on his way.
He is.
On Teams.
Mary Beth Williams, present. Ray Wong. All right, awesome. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Is anybody online? Public comment? Nope. All right, so moving right along. The first action item is the approval of the August 2024 minutes, which Courtney sent out earlier this week. Are there any corrections to be noted?
When's the last time we met?
This was last time we met. Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Well, if no corrections, do I have a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve the August 2024 minutes.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the minutes from the August 2024 meeting have been approved. Next item on the agenda is presentations from Captain College with Tampa Police Department.
Good evening. Thanks for inviting me back again. I enjoy these meetings. My apologies. I meant to get this data to Courtney earlier, but today has been pretty much a train wreck for me. But Brian wise, I just wanted to give like the wave tops of comparing 2024 to 2023 to give you an idea of the trend. And the trend is that we're doing better. So for instance, we break the city into sectors and zones, and downtown pretty much has 3 overlapping zones or abutting zones. So it's kind of hard to break it down for downtown specifically. But for zone F4, which is a big chunk of downtown, this area, our big fives: ag assault, burglary, auto burglary, robbery, and vehicle theft. That's down almost 13% compared to 2023. Thefts are down 17.56%. So the other ones that are hard to prevent, like murder's down 25%, Sex offenses down over 33%. So total crime wise, we're down 15.79% in that zone. And another zone, it doesn't mean anything to you, it's F3, but and some of the other data, like just in that zone itself, there was over 19,000 calls for service. We did over 1,000 homeless checks in just that zone itself.
F3 is the zone that we are in now in downtown.
So you got it. F2 is just slightly north. F3, F4, and then F5 is more like Ybor and Palmetto Beach. And F6 is out towards the east side, towards the 6 Mile Creek, out towards unincorporated Hillsborough County. But this zone, we're down. There's some things we're down a lot, but overall we're down 1.87%. Even though it's not a lot, I'll still take it down and up.
All right.
I can speak about some of the events that occurred on New Year's Eve, and also I can address the more urgent talking point is Fort Brook Garage. I think some of you may already know, but there's police activity there. It's isolated, but apparently somebody decided to fall or jump from the top of the garage or one of the levels of the garage. So they'll be tied up there for a while. I know it interferes with Lightning parking, but I believe they can still get in off Whiting Street, just not off Water Avenue.
I just got to know.
Did you park there? Okay. That's good to know. New Year's Eve, it was busy. Obviously, I prepare for Ybor because that's one of my areas of responsibility. But we also knew that was going to be busy at Armature Works, downtown, Curtis Hixon, and the Riverwalk. So Armature Works did hire extra duty police officers, which helped us, so we didn't have to ride on duty, and that takes the strain off us. But downtown was busy. We had 2 shootings. One was a security guard for an event at the museum. That's unfortunate. We're still actively working that investigation. Right now, we're challenged. Some of the cameras that we're hoping to be working were not working, or were obstructed naturally. Like, for instance, one of them had spider webs inside the protective cone, so you wouldn't know about it until you took that camera apart and realize that. But he's going to be okay. He was working at the museum. There was a disturbance outside. He wanted to go break up the disturbance, and all he said was, "I heard a loud noise and I felt pain to my chest." And that was a single gunshot, went through his arm and into his chest. But he's going to be okay. And the other one was a female was shot in her lower leg, in like the calf area. That one, we have some good video. We're actively working that as well. We had a meeting this afternoon to review some of the video. It seems pretty promising, and not to tip the hands of the investigators, because they may be reaching out to the media for some assistance. But that one's being actively worked as well. And with that shooting victim, she's 16. She's going to be okay as well.
Was that at Curtis Hixon as well?
No, that was at Duncan Gas. Yeah, and it's just unfortunate. I mean, we had plenty of officers downtown. We even, when we saw that the crowds were getting larger, we pulled officers from other sections of my district and other parts of the city just to maintain a more visible presence.
The numbers that you mentioned in terms of crime being down pretty significant, 15%. Do you feel that the hurricanes, that it almost feels like it was an entire month that we were dealing with that? Do you feel like that might have had an impact in terms of some of the numbers being lower? I mean, obviously you guys are doing a fantastic job, but to what extent do you feel like that might have?
I could say, just because I track the numbers obviously by month, the hurricanes actually, we went up in some crimes, especially like thefts, because people had left their homes, evacuated, and then people would prey on that opportunity. So we actually saw our burglaries and thefts increase, but now they've dropped back down. So I wish, well, we don't wish any storms in the area, but No, I mean, citywide, we're down pretty significantly. I say this, when we do our monthly comp stat with staff, with the chiefs and all the commanders, I sometimes have to double check my numbers because I don't believe them because of like this can't be right because I'm now at 0 when last year I wasn't, but they're accurate. And I tell the chiefs, I feel bad for whoever has to brief this next year because it'll probably be me, but how do I get better than 0? You know, I could tell you, for instance, in Ybor, the heart of Ybor, from 15th to 22nd to Adamo to the interstate. 2023, we had 8 robberies. 2024, we had 0. So how do I improve on that? There's always things we can do better. But I think overall as an agency, with the influx of the population, there's more activity downtown. There's more opportunities for crime. I think all the events that are occurring, you know, you think about it, you know, in the next few weeks, we're going to have 3 parades in 8 days, you know, major parades, MLK, the Children's Parade, and the Gasparilla Day Parade. With 500,000 people coming in on Gasparilla, plus the city population, it's a challenge, but, you know, we are a very safe city for our size. I might misspeak, but I think the chief out of the major cities, we're like the 2nd safest major city in the country out of the top 50 cities in the country. So I'll take that all day long. Doesn't mean that things don't happen, but it's compared to some of our other cities that are considered pretty safe, we're even better than that. Or something else. Oh, I did a quick check-in on the cameras for Channel District. We're still on track. We had a hiccup. A third-party vendor that is supplying the main vendor. I'm going to butcher this because I'm not that smart, but the components were different than what were needed inside the boxes that communicate the signal out wirelessly. That's getting fixed. We should have an answer tomorrow, but Detective McInnes said we're still looking at a 60-day timeline from now. I said, I might say 90 to give them some time, but we're looking at 60 to have those up and running.
It's all great news.
Any updates on the Riverwalk bicycle kids?
That's always a challenge because I know there's 2 sides of that. I know there's been conversation about just banning bicycles or wheeled vehicles in total, but I think that eliminates families trying to enjoy the Riverwalk with their children. And the picture that comes to my mind is kids on bikes with training wheels with their families. And you don't want to take that away because that's all part of, you know, growing up and enjoying, you know, watching your kids grow. But I know exactly what you're talking about. I've asked our bike patrol to spend more time there. They work mostly day shift hours, and I know it happens early evening. What I'm trying to do is increase our patrols on the Riverwalk early evening using like our side-by-side vehicles, because I worked New Year's Eve. I was on foot the entire time downtown, and I know they're effective, but it reinforced how effective they are getting from place to place, especially when you have a lot of vehicle traffic. They can get to places that a police car can't, and they can get there quicker. In fact, the 2nd shooting victim, they were right there when it happened. So they were immediately on the scene, rendering aid. And me going back to my car that was parked at the museum, trying to get over there, like it took time. But those side-by-sides are huge help. So I want to encourage them as time permits and as manpower permits to get more of that on the Riverwalk during high traffic.
Is there anything that we can do to assist with that?
There is, I don't know if,
Yeah, we have money, $494,000 in the CAC budget. And as he mentioned, the Channel District cameras are being purchased by the CRA of the Channel District. because we can do those above and beyond enhanced type services. Like Ybor City does an enhanced weekend squad, channel distributing the cameras. And we have the ability to fund things like what he needs to do enhanced patrolling. So that could be an idea that we do approve. If we have to have legal weigh in on it, just to make sure it's all statutorily, possible. We're doing everything legal, but we do have the funding there that we could afford some equipment that would be useful to Captain College.
Even public information campaigns as well, because I think education is an important component too. And I know that city isn't crazy about throwing up a bunch of signage on the Riverwalk, but we can potentially do social media campaign. I think there's a way to get the message out. We educate people about the safe way to use the Riverwalk. It's one measure. Certainly, I think the enhanced patrols and increased police presence out there will help as well. I get calls. I forward you my emails that I get on the regular basis.
I rode my bike with my wife from South Tampa up the Bay Shore all the way to Armature on the Riverwalk, and the whole time I thought Mary Beth would eat.
Were you riding safely?
Were you doing a wheelie?
The whole way out, yeah.
I just thought, it doesn't matter, Mary Beth doesn't want to.
That's not.
When you mentioned the bicycle, that's what I thought of, because I've been on the river walking, I would say like 99% of the time, it's like perfectly fine, but there's always that group of kids or that one kid doing the wheelie the entire way. And it's just like super dangerous.
The kid was there when we did, I mean, we were in the middle of the day. It was like 2 in the afternoon, and there's kids doing that right around shore.
Yeah, right, that's usually around that area where I've seen it. From CAS into like Armature.
They like to veer at people. To
Right,
yes.
Yeah, that was the email that I just sent.
Yeah, they call it tourism. They were doing it for a little while in Ybor. But because once traffic gets so congested on 7th Avenue, it's really hard for them to do. But in the early evenings, sometimes you'll see that. But last time I was in Ybor for dinner with the family, and I saw 2 guys riding bikes, but they did some wheelies, but they weren't doing the swerve. They were actually stopping at the red light, stopping at the stop sign. So they're complying. They just kind of shut it off a little bit, but they weren't doing what you were talking about. Which I know David Simons had some problems with that. Large groups of bicyclists and doing the swerving, but we've been pretty fortunate. A few weeks ago, my wife and I were here downtown at the arena for an event, and we saw a large group, probably about 300 or 400 people on bicycles. Wow. But they too were abiding by the traffic pattern, and it's challenging. I was like, why can't you do something about that? Like, one police officer trying to stop 300 or 400 people, like it's not possible. So education is a big part of it. Just like when I was a DUI sergeant, education, deterrence, and enforcement are the 3 components of trying to gain compliance with the law. So same thing, education is a big piece, just like people know. You get people from out of town, and they think it's okay to do certain things on bicycles or whatever on the Riverwalk, and it's not. And it's great. I mean, Riverwalk is fantastic. It's probably another reason why we're increasing it. And not many cities have what we have. So we're very fortunate. So Riverwalk is a priority for me. I stress that to the officers. It's just, again, it's balancing resources. Like, I only have a certain amount of officers dedicated to the geographical area during a time frame. And where do I place them, to have be the most effective?
So Courtney, what then is the next step for us to make a motion
Yeah.
to utilize a certain amount of money to go towards additional enforcement along Riverwalk?
Yeah, and I also wanted to ask the group, those who are newer wouldn't know, but I know it's been mentioned at previous meetings that the group had talked about uses of the monies that were set aside for TPD enhanced services. We tried to track down any information from the previous captain, our previous captain captains, I don't, but we couldn't find any record of what it was that the CAC was recommending.
So we used money for additional,
Was it
additional units out there. We also purchased bikes with some of the money. That was when we were allowed to use the money, and then we were gonna set some money aside, and then we were told, no, we can't do that. But we did utilize some of that money for purchasing bikes, and I wanna say, was it Alex?
Mhm.
Alex Thiel was here when we did that.
Mhm.
Who was prior to Alex?
Brother,
Mhm.
Yeah, it might have been Brett. It might have been Brett
Okay.
that we purchased the bikes, and we hired additional units to go out there and patrol. I think it was bike units.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's up to this group if you wanted to make a motion I mean, what would you think would be most useful? The Bobcats for Riverwalk patrolling?
being selfish, yes, because it's easier to convince officers to work. I can pay officers to ride bikes and they're very effective, but like on a night like tonight, like probably wouldn't get much buy-in for officers riding bikes. But on a side-by-side, with emergency equipment, really they can get places quickly and they can still traverse areas that you can't with a police car. Again, they're just highly effective. They're visible. I think people like seeing them. I like the open air concept because people are approachable. The officers are approachable. They're not driving around with the windows up. Like, people can talk to them as they're driving by. They're not driving by fast. And I think as a resource, we find them to be very valuable, especially with events, parades, and large crowds where we can slowly maneuver through the group instead of, car or.
And typically, what do those run if you were to purchase those?
I just inquired because I was trying to see if I can get some for e-board from the department, but they're running equipped around 22,000 a piece. That's on the state contract.
Would you recommend how many?
I'd be happy with any, but I also, it has to be manageable too. Like, I would be irresponsible to say I would like 6, because I know 6 wouldn't be used efficiently. They
You
would
still have to hire extra duty, correct, too?
Right, I'd have to have the officers to drive them, and I would prefer 2 per side by side. I think that's more effective too. It's just people, cops are more apt to engage when they're working with somebody than if they're by themselves.
So would you need the CRA to fund the side-by-sides and the additional units, or just the side-by-sides?
No, I would need both.
Okay.
And stop me if I'm venturing into an area that I'm not supposed to speak to.
No, I'm just thinking, no, I mean, with the funding is available and that's what it's intended for. So maybe it's just that we could motion, if we don't have a dollar figure right now, we could motion to bring it back next month of a breakdown of what that looks like, or however long you think that would take to
Yeah,
look.
I mean, I could put together like a proposal of what it would look like and the cost over time, and I could vary the hours and the days of the week and everything, but some of my thoughts are, busy times, right? You don't really need to be paying for somebody to go down Riverwalk at 3 a.m. because I have officers that can do that. But weekends, dinner hours, even sometimes lunch hours, because it does get busy. We're approaching being a walkable city. So the times that I would be most productive and be highly visible, and again, make people feel safe. And I think I've said it here. I started my career up north, and it was not uncommon for somebody to come up to you and ask for, hey, where's a good restaurant, or where's a good place to get a slice of pizza, or where can I go park? Like, I want the officers to be those ambassadors as well for the city of Gatineau. Because we do get a lot of visitors and they're used to asking cops. And cops do it when they go visit other cities. They'll go, hey, where can I park? Where's a good place to go? Where's a good place for Italian food? I like that approach here too, because it just, let's show the city. I mean, it's a great place. You know, think of the opposite where the cops like, I don't know, that would be horrible. My father-in-law and mother-in-law went to an event at the Stratas over the weekend, and they were talking to a firefighter that was working, you know, extra duty there. And they were amazed at how engaged the firefighter was talking to him. My mother-in-law thought like, you're bothering her. And no, it was like the firefighter wanted to have a conversation. And that's how I push my cops to be too, is be that ambassador, be talkative, engage. There's good people out there. You'll find them. They'll find you. So that's the advantage, I think, of having that open air concept, being able to maneuver around, answer questions, park somewhere. You know, people are probably more timid to go up to a police car and knock on the window versus like an open air golf cart, side by side, wherever, and just walk up and start talking to them.
That would be great if you could put together a proposal and then we could be prepared to vote on that meeting.
Yeah, could do that.
Yeah, and then even if you have other ideas, that, you know, if there's something else additional that you think of between now and then, and add to it.
Okay. Yeah, my idea is just high visibility. You know, putting cops out there in plain clothes and undercover, we could always do that, but that doesn't reinforce people's feeling of being safe. It's the uniform cops that I think have the most impact doing that. And I'm open to ideas, like, because I see it, I try to see it from different angles, but I can't always see it from everyone's angle. And if you have ideas of what you'd like to see, and if it's something I can provide or even draft into this proposal, I'm happy to do it.
And the side-by-sides, is it common for them to be able to take the side-by-sides into the Riverwalk? I haven't seen that before. Okay.
Yeah, they'll drive, I mean, I tell them 2.7 miles, right? Back and forth, back and forth. And it's, what was I gonna say? I lost my train of thought, but yes, they're not loud, you know, and I have one at my disposal right now for my district, and we usually use that for e-board, and we can borrow side-by-sides from other units. But when there's events going on throughout the city, sometimes they're not available. So, but again, it just, the other night, New Year's Eve, reinforced to me the effectiveness of having that out there.
I have a question. I think it was late last year or maybe early, or I think it was early last year, late 23, but there was a handful of shootings and like gun-related incidents near the Haiku nightclub on Franklin. It was like one after another, it just kept happening. And your department came and talked to us about that. Has anything else happened over there lately, or is it kind of quieted down?
Downtown has not been bad. Obviously, Ybor is, you know, one of my concerns, but I work at least one night a month, from like 10 or probably like 8 at night to 4 in the morning. And I take advantage of that time to hit all the areas of my concern. And I think I described the area. I'm responsible for basically the city limits with Brandon to Tampa Heights to the river up to I-4. And the Franklin Street, like 511, it gets busy, but they manage it. You know, and I tell my officers, if they're not managing it, but address it. You know, and I get it. People are getting dropped off on the street. It's a narrow street. You have the Uber drivers, you have the VIPs with the full-size SUVs and everything, but as long as they manage it, that's fine. If it's a popular place that you're gonna have a lot, you know, and that's not a bad thing. It's just, just has to be ordered. And I have OCD, so sometimes I kind of have to kind of realize that it's okay. But when I see that, I'm like, I'm very organized and structured, but that's just people, you know. And downtown it's been busier. I think everybody here would agree that it's gotten a lot busier over the years, but it's been orderly, you know. And we had some venues that no longer are open in that area, which I think has helped.
I don't know if there's, do you know if Haiku is still open?
Haiku still open, but the nightclub that's one block north next to the cigar lounge is closed.
Okay, it
But
might have been that.
plans to, a new nightclub, I believe, is gonna be going.
You guys remember when there was like
Yeah.
string
Yeah.
games?
And so in the meantime, while he's putting together a proposal, if there are any other ideas that pop to mind over the next, couple of weeks, just send them to me. And then I'll let him know the ideas in a way, if it's possible.
I think signage too, and I know that we're tackling signage on a number of fronts, but I think all agencies need to be in agreement in terms of what type of signage is appropriate, no electric vehicles, whatever our policy is for the Riverwalk needs to be clearly communicated. I don't think we have those rules in enough places. Maybe that's some conversation with parks.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, because like, what do you prefer that look like? Because there's some signage that actually blends and looks like it belongs
They
there.
just did some, I say just, gotta be at least a year or so now, some nice like silver signs. I just don't think that they're in enough locations. I couldn't even tell you where they're located.
Just for reference, I have about 7,000 or 8,000 people on my campus every day, hospital, and signs don't do anything. People smoke with their feet on the no smoking signs.
Yes, great.
And then throw their butts at the signs. And that's one example of 100. And my phrase I've been saying for 15 years there, signs don't fix everything. So I just caution, because there is a place for them, and I've got thousands and thousands of them, and some of them are useful. But they don't always do what you want. And some people intentionally, especially
The ones that we put, the decals, those temporary decals, I mean, we could do something like that. Remember during COVID when they kind of did the chalk kind of thing? It doesn't have to be high cost, it doesn't have to be permanent, just to remind people,
Yeah, I mean, you're right, like,
it's the rule followers that you don't have to worry about.
it's
Right? That's the whole thing.
that's me, like, you go to Walmart and it says parking for law enforcement.
Yeah.
Like, I won't park there.
Yeah.
Even off duty, when I was like, you can park there, I'm like, no, or like veterans park, I'm like, I'm entitled, but I'm like, no, I want to follow the rules. Somebody else deserves that more than I do. But there's some people that may be on the bubble or uninformed that signs help. Like,
Yeah, young people maybe.
right. And then there's the people that they see a sign and they're gonna do what they can to,
do the opposite.
yes.
It's my wheelie kids.
But I think maybe thinking outside the box with signage, making it more of an art versus just a, strict, I can't think of where I want to use, but going, like you said, when somebody says, I used to have an officer, he could have been a tremendous officer, he doesn't work here anymore. But anytime I said, do not cross this line, that moment he's trying to find a way to get around it. Like people like that. But maybe signs that aren't as authoritative, but will gain compliance that are kind of a blend with the landscape and, maybe a little bit more creative. And I know anything that a kid does, tears my heart apart. So, have like a sign contest or something like that.
Yeah, we put murals up so people don't graffiti, and they don't because they don't want to disturb other people's work.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Let's go ahead and move on to the next item, which is the beneficial bridge study progress. Tricia?
It's me. Hi, Tricia Schuler from Jacob. So presentation is not opening or working, or it's in the webs of the inner world, so we don't know how to open it. So I'm just going to talk to the project if that's okay. Wasn't that exciting of a presentation anyways. It's just a project update. I took some notes. I have this like tiny little thing. So if I look down on my phone, I don't think I'm being weird. I'm just trying to remind myself of the update of the project. So Tricia Schuler with Jacobs, we were asked by the city of Tampa to put together a feasibility study to extend the Riverwalk potentially extend the Riverwalk under Beneficial Drive. You guys are familiar with the project a little bit enough. We got NTP last summer. We've been working on it since about September-ish. So I'm here today to kind of give an overview of the project and where we stand. Basically, at this point, we've done existing condition analysis, environmental analysis. We've had multiple site visits. We've had engineering survey, done a lot of stakeholder coordination. That's been a really big part of it. People like Parks and Rec, obviously, the SVP guys, Port Authority, Yacht Starship, and Southwest Florida Water Management District. And then we've done an initial engineering evaluation. So I'm going to dive into that just a little bit. Permitting is going to be a big part of this project. So that's a critical path for us right now, is to outline the permits, depending on the route, where we go with the project, what comes next. Permitting is a big part of the schedule. So we're sort of focused on the permitting part as of right now. As far as engineering goes, typical section alternatives are currently under development at this point. We looked into a submerged section, submerged structure design that was evaluated. It was determined to not really be feasible. We're looking into an underbridge evaluation with a 7 to 8 feet vertical clearance under the bridge right there. And I'll kind of get into that. I'm kind of giving like a very broad overview right now, but this is like 3 months ago, almost 2 months ago update. And then I'm going to give you guys the most recent update, which is like 2 weeks old. Budget environmental conditions analysis, natural resources, and we drafted an environmental tech memo that was submitted to the city. Public outreach has been a major part. It's been almost a bigger part than the engineering has. And meeting with multiple partners, there's multiple things to consider. So for example, when we met with SVP, it's a temporary condition that we're in right now. Eventually they will, 10 years or so, build on the parking lot, which sits north of the Yacht Starship. I don't know if I pointed. So another example is port, right? The Port of Tampa. We can't, once we get under the bridge, theoretically, we can't extend down because the port has security issues. So when you get under the bridge and you curve around in front of the Yacht Starship, what happens to folks when they hit the parking lot, which is already has some safety concerns about the Yacht Starship from that. So in meeting with stakeholders, we're putting together lots of pieces. And then one of the final pieces that came recently was from Southwest Florida Management District. They have a easement on the north side of the bridge. It's a conservation easement and nothing within the right of way of Beneficial Drive can be built there. So at this point, based off that easement, the chances of being able to go under the bridge are very limited. We're still proceeding with some engineering evaluations, but we've really kind of turned our feasibility study from going under the bridge to different alternatives. Not sure what those alternatives are at this point. We've had to go back to the drawing table, figure out what to do, because there is enhancements that are desperately needed at this area right now. People are wandering around that SVP parking lot. People are coming up to the crosswalk at Beneficial Drive, crossing over the street. They're being dumped sort of on the other side. On the east side, there's not much there. So our team right now is really back at the drawing board trying to figure out how to get people safely on the Riverwalk without potentially going under the bridge because the conservation easement that we have through Swiftland on the west side by the Columbia.
Is that why you can't go partially under the water? Because of the.
We looked at the submerged, there's a lot of concerns. It's very expensive. It's kind of like one of the big factors. The other factor is with hurricanes and just the river tides up and down. It's very narrow. The city parks department really wants about at minimum 8 feet. And even then, when you sit on a bike, I bike a lot too, right? I'm a biker on the river walking my kids, sorry. You would be crouching down. It could be very dangerous. Parks also doesn't want any more 90 turns. You're on the river all the time. Even with walking, those 90 turns are really tricky. So it needs to flow better. We could have, without the easement, I think it might have been possible, although challenging. But with that easement now, it would be almost impossible to bring anything under the bridge.
The reason I ask is I'm with Friends of the Riverwalk. We had a feasibility study done recently, well, in the last couple of years, about an underpass at CAC Street.
Oh, okay.
And in our design, it is partially under the water with 9-foot 9-foot
Clear
clearance
as submerged.
would withstand, and I'm not an engineering expert, so help me out if I speak incorrectly, but it would withstand a king tide.
Right.
I mean, obviously, we have some flooding issues in serious storm conditions
Right.
regardless. But there were broken pumps, and so I'm just,
Yeah. We
wondering.
did a submerged, Jacobs, my firm did a submerged bridge in Jacksonville. It's very well received. People love it. They're on it all the time. I just don't think at Beneficial Drive, it is gonna work because the clearance is so low.
Yeah, that is a very low clearance. We do cleanups.
Really low bridge. Yeah, and again, you kind of dump in a weird spot. You could come all the way out into the channel, but then we met with Port, the map of the channel, like security zones is crazy. It's crazy. So it got Starship's the same, having to get their ships in and out along with the cruise ships. It was just, I don't foresee that. I don't see a submerged bridge being the best option, even without the Swift Mud easement, which really kind of negates.
So what alternative options are there?
So, oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, the option that you're sort of like referring to would almost be a condition similar to what we currently have at CAS, where you essentially get off the Riverwalk.
And come back on.
Currently, the
Right.
Riverwalk ends at the History Center. We're
Yeah.
talking about extending the Riverwalk over to the
You have to
parking
cross
lot
the road somehow.
at Garrison, which is the issue that we have right now, which is why we want an underpass at Cass Street.
Why don't you tunnel under
Just
Beneficial?
bridge underneath it, yeah. We talked about actually going over, up and over,
Yeah.
and then connecting to Channelside Drive, and it was like,
Be a really high bridge.
guys. Yeah, I mean, there's so many needs. I think we're prioritizing needs of the city over just going up with the Riverwalk, because right now the Riverwalk, so 5-10 years from now, even, the Port and Daryl Shaw and Ebor, they want to make a connection, but they can't make a connection along the river. The connection is actually going to be at the roadway somewhere in the middle going by the Port. Name of that street, I say this all the time. So you can get to the SPP lot. You can get to that lot right there, under the bridge, if the easement didn't exist and it was more but then you still have them dumping into that parking lot. So, and then you still have to get them over to Channelside Drive.
What you're saying though, you just said something about connecting to Ebor. And I think when you think of the Riverwalk, you think of the continuity of the Riverwalk, which I think is a big problem at Cass, right? Like having to get off at Cass and go into the street and to get back to the Riverwalk. But it maybe it's a shift in the thinking of what the Riverwalk transforms into as you get to that point, because then
Right.
it's no longer the Riverwalk, it moves into sort of like into the street.
Channel over there, so maybe that's
Yeah.
the semantic of why
You just call it
we're
something
in the
else.
city.
Yeah, you can just call it something other than Riverwalk. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what that would be.
Yeah,
But it's
because
the
like in
same.
my mind, as you're saying, like, we'll move it into the street, I'm like, well, then it's not the Riverwalk anymore, but maybe it's not the Riverwalk anymore. Maybe
It's still some sort of connectivity.
Right,
Like,
connect.
Well, It's just
Yeah.
gonna be a section that won't be
As long as you
along
get back
the
to the
river.
river.
Right.
Yeah, right.
There you go.
Well,
Because Sparkman is such an anchor, a natural anchor
Mhm.
until further whatever's, but how do you get to that point? And
Right.
people don't realize when you're going up to that intersection, it actually kind of flows away, but yeah, everyone kind of jumps across basically right at Heron.
Right.
Before they get to that intersection, they see a break in the street and they try to make that dash across,
Yeah.
and that's
Right.
the tactical paint will only get you so far.
And it's not a great
Right.
crossing.
Yeah,
No.
no,
All
it's
that
not.
much. So to your question, what alternatives are we looking at? Potentially some landscape architecture to really enhance the area, sort of point people along to that crossing right there in a better way. And then maybe do some landscape architecture on the other side so it frames nicely. On the west side, the Publix Heron side is lovely. There's tons of elements, pavers and lots of natural elements. That's not really on the other side. The other side is like some trees and shrubbery and a parking lot. So
And that sidewalk is like super
Narrow, you have
narrow.
the
Very narrow.
streetcar stop and then the Tampa sign, so yeah, you've got a lot of people all meeting at one spot.
And then on Starship, one of the things they said is people are constantly wandering around the parking lot and they enter the Starship, they're like, where do I go? I'm stuck in this room. So it would be good to have some sort of protective barrier somewhere along here so that we can't go under the bridge. At least we're still protecting residents and giving them a nice channel to get on Channelside Drive and then they can connect up to the port. That's where their ultimate goal is.
Do you have a budget in terms of
For the
expected
feasibility study?
Well, for the overall project.
Oh, no, we do not. I don't think that's part of our scope, is putting together a budget. We're gonna put together alternatives, we'll present them to the city, and see what they want to do moving forward. Because it's just a feasibility study, part of that is not scoping there.
Right.
I mean, we could throw out numbers, again, like an overhang, an elevated bridge over the street would be very expensive, landscape architecture.
I mean, I think we were sitting at about 15 million is the top end of doing the underpass at CAS. That's the quote that we received, and that was an updated as of this past fall.
How do you cross at CAC? This is not like my project, I'm just more curious, because we did I was one of the folks that did the two-way of CAS in Tyler under a different program years and years ago. How do you coordinate that with CSX?
So CSX actually is on board. We spoke with them. We got,
They're tough to deal with, so that.
we got their blessing, the Straz, the Museum of Art.
They'd probably rather have less people crossing the tracks, which is what happened.
Yeah, again, I was there this weekend with, there's 10 of us and we cross at the tracks and then we go down the little walkway and then we go. Yeah,
I'd rather go under.
yeah, that's true.
Did you study moving Harbor Island so you can just get the bridge?
Just close the bridge altogether,
Yes.
We can afford
tear it down. That was not part of the study.
All right.
We did look at, before the Swift Mud easement really kind of like put a bomb on everything. We did look at like some other kayak launches. Everybody really wants the recreational aspects. SVP really wants them, Parks really wants them. Unfortunately, we can't touch anything on the west side really, from the right of way of the bridge north, so. Yeah. That's, did I miss anything? I don't know where did I miss
I don't
anything?
think so, just, that we wanted to make sure they knew that this was going forward. This is that project split between Channel District and downtown, so Channel District also received the same, they received the same presentation in November. We didn't have quorum, so that's why she's saying the information's a little bit old, because she was prepared to present, but we didn't have quorum. So she's presenting what she would have presented in November, and now things have transpired since that time, so now we're getting a little bit more updated presentation. And then we have one more presentation that we would get from you, but we just wanted to have.
We said February, but I think it would be, we'll see, how things have progressed and what we have. We don't want to come back and say the same thing I just said. So I want to make sure we're going to be giving you guys some pretty good alternatives and what we've looked at.
Yeah, so we wanted to have Channel District receive at least 2 presentations. So this is the first one, just to give you a sense of the direction. And then we'll have more of a kind of a final presentation again. And then the CRA board would receive a presentation of the alternatives. So this won't be the last. You'll hear kind of more toward the end, final wrapping up of the study. So either February, March.
Yeah, I think we're gearing for February. So
Yeah, so you may see her next month.
great. Any other questions?
Exciting.
It is really. I kind of wish we could have gone under the bridge then,
Yeah.
but it's okay. Nobody wants to be dumped in a parking lot with nowhere to go. So this is probably a better alternative. It's okay. I don't want to mess with the conservation easement.
I mean, the fact that we're even like talking about it, like that, it's out there as an option, doing something, that's exciting.
So,
It'll be an improvement either way.
either way,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, sure, absolutely.
Next item on the agenda is the CRA arts process. Corey?
Hi, sorry, I tried to be here months ago, but hopefully
Our last minutes were from August.
So I am Corey Robinson. I'm the Arts and Cultural Project Coordinator for the CRA. This first page of this packet, I have my card and it says Hannah, but I'm actually around the corner. So those cards are getting updated. This first page is just a little bit about me. I've been an artist, a working artist for over 25 years. I managed artwork globally and created artwork for Urban Outfitters for 18 years. And then just recently came over from Creative Pinellas. I was managing their public art. We got a lot to do a lot of great things over there, but happy to be be at the city. I live in Tampa Heights, so I've lived there for a while, so since like 2010. So this is very close to my house and a lot better working over here. So
You work with, Rockland guy,
yeah,
still there?
yeah, she's over in Hannah. Yeah, I've been like training over there since I came out of the city to learn the public art process with her.
Okay.
Yeah, her and Melissa Davies are still there. Running the arts and cultural department.
Okay.
But I'm just focused on CRA.
Got it.
Only projects. So this process, do you have pulled up? We can.
Well, here, you can drive it
Oh,
actually.
okay.
Put it Somewhere.
I don't know if there's anybody online that's gonna
No, there isn't.
just have to click here.
Or scroll.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, what did you say you joined the city?
May 28th, 2024. So pretty recent, not even a little over 6 months. But it's been great so far. Definitely a learning curve. I came from obviously the corporate retail world and nonprofit, so working for the government's a little bit different, and procurement and things like that. So I'm learning and taking it all in. There's a lot to learn, but it's been great so far, and hopefully we're going to be getting some projects going really soon. So this, when they came in, there wasn't really a process to like an organized way for the CRAs to request art and get art. So we've kind of developed this process with Robin, using what she's been doing with the city and with what the CRA has been doing, because they do things a little bit differently. And we've come up with this process. Seems a little bit long, but to be honest, it's really just laid out in long form to be very transparent. So we start with a slow flow chart, and then really it starts with a request from the CAC or a community member or a community organization. That'll be go to the manager of each district. Once the request comes in, I will meet with the manager and we will go over to make sure it meets the plan or the SRP, to make sure there's funding, and we'll like kind of look over this next page, which is this worksheet. This worksheet has already kind of been updated. We kind of took what the city was already using for their like kind of pre-project worksheet. And this is like, this whole process is adaptable, and for every project might change a little bit just based on sculpture, mural, whatever the project may be. So we'll work on this, get this worksheet going to see, does it meet the plan, what's the all the details of the project. If it meets the plan or the SRP, the manager will report, myself and the manager will report back to the CAC. And if it doesn't, the manager will just report back to the CAC that says it doesn't meet the plan. So the next step 4, I'll come back to the CAC. If it meets the plan and we're going through, I'll come back to the CAC. I'll usually try to put out a community survey based on like the interests and the needs of the project. I never want to do a project without like activating the community. So I'll usually try to come back with a presentation of the project with the survey results, and then just get the recommendation for funding. And then from there, we'll coordinate with the internal departments to procure an artist, and we'll build an art selection committee. And this is where it follows, the art selection committee kind of is an adaptation for the CRA of the way the arts and cultural department works. So it'll be built, made up of a City of Tampa owner department rep, whether that's parks or mobility or et cetera. A CAC rep that'll be recommended by the CAC. This rep can change for every project. This rep can stay on for multiple projects. I know some CACs have a very dedicated art person that they want to, that's very passionate. It can change every project. It can change based on term. It can, whatever, all up for adaptation. It'll consist of also a public art committee representative That usually, the public art committee representative is usually based off of their schedule and try to get someone that's like involved in the area or involved in that discipline. A visual arts expert that I would recommend, and then a community representative. The community representative will also be appointed by the CAC, whether that is appointed by the actual CAC person assigned to the project, or if the whole CAC wants to recommend a community member to represent the area. And so step 5. The Arts PC I'll develop a scope of work and a call for artists, develop the timeline. And we like to keep I've had a lot of success with open calls for at least a minimum of 6 weeks, with like, something like if we have storms, obviously we're gonna have to extend all those options and, make adjustments for that. And I'll start scheduling the selection meeting. So as soon as the call does end, we can immediately go into the selection process. The next page is just kind of, next slide is just kind of like some things that would go into the call of artists. Project description, eligibility, site description, theme, content, if there's something, a theme that needs to be involved. Just making sure that the call to artists is very structured and detailed to make sure that we're not getting a lot of artists applying that aren't qualified or aren't in that, can't really be chosen for the project. We want to make sure we're mindful of everyone's time, the selection committee, the artist, everybody involved. So the art selection will be the next slide. You can see the art selection committee over here in this little picture.
We've been around for a while.
So as the call closes, the application will go through internal review. I'll be one of the people that goes through, make sure that, like, especially for like a sculpture, it's someone that's had worked in this field before, because, obviously with storms and everything, we need to be mindful of engineered drawings and everything being like very safe. So some projects may not be for beginners, like possibly like a painting a mural can be a newer artist, obviously. So the art selection committee will meet to determine the final selection or the finalists, and also at that time, if more than one artist is chosen, then we will pay those artists to design, to make a proposal of designs and plan, and then the art selection committee will reconvene and also select those designs for that proposal if there's more than one artist, or they will come back and like look over the proposal and designs of the one finalist. Both of these meetings will be publicly noted, so anyone can come to the art selection committee meetings. So once an artist is selected, we'll notify the artist. And then next slide is just kind of like a little, goes from the CAC to the art selection committee, and then CRA board for approval of funding. And there's just this little cute graphic to show the process. And then step 7, reporting. The art selection is reported to the CAC and to the CRA board. Contract development and approval, internal process for the artist, and then we'll start with implementation. Step 8. This is the best step because I'll work with the artist, scheduling the project for completion, shipping, delivery, site prep, installation, etc. We'll have a dedicated planning, but the best part is the art will be out there and everyone will feel the joy, hopefully, from the community, and we'll be cutting some ribbons and getting some art out there. So yeah, I know that Union Station's been a project on the list for a while. I've been having a lot of meetings about Union Station, so I'll be giving some updates hopefully soon about that. And if there's any other requests, just let Courtney know, and any community members have requests or anything like that, like I'd love to look look into any projects that might be coming down the line that I haven't heard of yet, but
I get a lot of requests for more art on the Riverwalk.
yeah, if we can do that, that would be great. We just have to, I can look at the CRP. I know that a lot of the challenges of some of the projects that we've been, if it's directly on the Riverwalk, that's great. If it's on a private business, that's going to be challenging, you know, due to the CRPs or just the city's doesn't really like to, we can't maintain a private building, so it's like hard to, but
About over by the Strads, you know, the xylophone and
Yeah.
the harp, I don't even know if it's there anymore. Can those be fixed or replaced?
those were with a company called Urban Conga. They are still around. I'm fairly good friends with the owner of that company. So like, if that is something that like, I think they still have a fabrication area in Ybor, at the end of Ybor. So I think that they're still actively working in the area. He's currently, I think, in New York, working up there with the company too. So if that is something that would like to be made repairs, and we want to go with the same vendor and see if we can reach out to them, like what the cost would be and stuff, I can definitely.
Who owns them? Are those owned by the city? Are they?
I think they're owned by the city. He was doing a lot of stuff with, I can double check with him and find out like how that all worked out, because I know that they were like kind of, for a while, they were managing the cube that was in front of the straws that they were doing murals on, like for art installations, but I think that then the straws took that over. I don't know if the harp and the xylophone were commissioned by the straws or they were commissioned by the city. I know a lot of the ping pong tables they were doing were commissioned by the city, so.
I had a conversation with Robin about it not too long ago,
Okay.
so I think she's got some background.
Okay, I can reach out to her too. I'll see her next week, actually, so. I can reach out to her about it and reach out to Ryan, whether it can get to see who actually, how that was like maintained or what the deal is with it.
The other, we have on our website, like at Public Art Walk, and the city of Tampa put it together, but it's very much outdated. I talked to Robin about that too, about potentially updating it. I mean, it has like the river wall when it was located over at the corner of Beneficial and Channel Side, and it's now relocated to Ashley and Platt. That's just one example, but something like that, would that be a potential project for this? Like,
We can look into that too, to see what we would need to, if it was like, I would have to look at the plan to see if it was like a programming thing, because I think that that's been kind of taken out by state statute, maybe like CRA paying for programming. But I can look into that as well. But if it's just, you know, mapping something out, we can definitely get something like that going. So then we can, you know, activate the community to enjoy the Riverwalk and look at the art that is being provided, because there is a lot of art on the Riverwalk with the museum and armature and river ball and so and all the, you know, the historical busts that are lining it. So I think there is a lot that could be done there to like maybe update that, and I can definitely talk around about that.
okay.
You mentioned the city's ability to provide, to maintain some of this art. Now, with regards to who can put in a request, it says community organization. So a private, would that be not necessarily a private entity, but a non-for-profit, let's say? What sort of limitations might prevent a community organization from being able to have artwork in their property, just based on what you said about your ability to maintain that artwork?
So if it's a private building and they want to put up artwork, we can't really stop them, you know, like that. It would be more for if the CRA was to try to fund artwork, like
That's what
a
I'm
private
referring to.
building. It would really have to be in the CRP to do that. Right now, I don't believe that any district in Tampa CRA or CRP allows our installations on private property. Just because if someone buys a building and they want to paint over a mural, you just pay $200,000 for that mural, it's like gonna be real devastating, you know, like, and seemed like a waste. And it's like, we don't necessarily have a leg to stand on, but like with that, if you know, it really real estate and everything how it is, but if the city owns the property and a community member or a community group, you know, it's really for anyone to put in a request, and then I'll take a look at it, see if we can get it to fit the plan, and then see who owns the property and see what we can do. Or, you know, even if it was like, for instance, like a neighborhood gateway or something like that, maybe we have to acquire the property, or maybe there's something that we can do to like get, you know, something push forward, you know. I'm open to all ideas.
Yeah, no, I think what you're saying makes perfect sense. I think I was interpreting this a little bit differently. So it says community or organization. I was sort of like interpreting that as like within their property, as opposed to them being the ones that can request artwork somewhere, putting in a request. So that to me was just, I think I was just misinterpreting.
I appreciate that, because this, like I said, this is always adapting. So if this feels unclear, then I can definitely rewrite that to make it a little bit clearer for the future. Yeah, so anyone can really make a request. Community citizen, a single citizen, a community group, a nonprofit, you know, just like any other project, they can come and speak at the public, you know, reach out to managers or whatever.
Does the bridge lighting fall under the
Yep.
arts department? Because
Yeah.
they're, you know, we have a bunch of beautiful bridge lights and so forth, and the ones that beneficial, I think the hurricanes and the flooding, those are shot.
Those are being repaired. The conservator has come out, and I've been on a few meetings about the repairs to those. So that is a pretty big priority for Robin and her team to get the bio bridge. I think the town's called the one right by Full Sail. That one got pretty damaged. I did hear that the lighting maybe okay, and it's just the electrical component inside the box that's housed, really just everything in it is gone. But the lighting is meant to be submergible, so that was thought about previous. So without, according to the electricians that are like kind of working on the project, until they actually like rehook up the box, they won't know if the lighting's good. But right now, it's looking like the lighting might be technically okay. So that is something that like, it's definitely the lighting is like more of a higher cost project, but yeah, lighting is definitely falls under public art. As long as we have a artist design it, then it falls under the public art line item. So there's kind of a lot of options depending on the plan. So depending on the project that's requested, we just got to make it fit the plan, and we can make sure there's funding. We can probably make it happen.
Boy, I have lots of ideas.
Oh, that's great. I'm excited.
I'll be in touch.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, and my card's here. Like I said, we just moved to the other side of the building. So I'm down there. Feel free to pop by.
I'm
And
sorry you said that, Corey.
I don't get a lot of visitors. So yeah, feel free to email me, you know, call me on my city phone. That should all be the same information, probably just the address will change from where my office is located, so. Thank you so much
Very
for
good.
having me.
Thank you.
Way to get some
That's
out to the
great.
community. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Courtney, you're up.
I am. So zoned in on minutes. In your packets, these are the monthly reports that you've been seeing. Well, I don't think it's been on this, but we get these on a monthly basis from the projects team and the commercial grants team. So the two reports in your packets are just, kind of an internal document that they're worthy of sharing. So you see the downtown projects, and I'll just highlight that first one because I put a lot of information in your packet that Herman Massey Park is now underway. Yes, so
Fencing.
so anyway, because there's been some information being passed around about Herman Massey because there's going to be a press release put out shortly. I looked at it today, so it may be tomorrow or the next day, but they're going to do a press conference with the mayor, Chair Gwendolyn Henderson, CRA Chair Henderson, on just the beginnings of Herman Massey, renovations and projecting the Fantasy, the contractor who's actually doing the work is going to be there, and they're just going to talk about what's happening. I put some renderings in here in case these weren't shared with you. I think they're updated probably from what you saw in years past, but this is just are some visuals that we were providing as part of that press conference. And then the deadline, or that, not deadline, but the completion date expectation of late 2025 is what we'll be discussing with any of the reporters that show up. So it's nice to have the mayor's participation. But it'll be January the 15th. I'll send this out. I already have an appointment ready to be sent out to all of you, including Dan and Kim, who just rolled off the CAC. But, if you're available, it's 10 a.m. January 15th, but I'll put it on your calendars just as awareness. If you can make it, great. Understand if you can't, it's beginning of the workday, but that's next week, actually, next Wednesday,
January, what?
15th.
15th.
What time?
10 a.m.
There's an SSD meeting.
I was gonna say, we might move that around just for that.
Well, and I'm supposed to be at that SSD meeting.
We'll square that circle.
Yeah, so I was gonna have to tell,
Yeah,
Somebody-
I'll-
I can't
I'll
be there
Rachel-
because-
Rachel and Jalen know.
yeah.
There's three of us right there.
Yeah.
I think we might have forum.
So that is, unless it changes, but, because actually they were trying to do it this week and then it got changed because of a different press conference. So we think we have it locked in on the 15th at 10 a.m. at this point.
All right.
So, but anyway, that's what those spreadsheets are for, just to kind of give you a status. But Herman Massey, I wanted to highlight because we're actually doing, a nice to-do about it beginning next week. And then all the other ones are listed there. It's a pretty long list. Downtown has the longest list of projects. And then,
We have so much done.
We used to, it's all
Yeah.
projects now.
and then the commercial grants page, so people who have either inquired, we haven't really received any applications to date, more or less inquiries, with those grants, with like commercial grants, interior. So with that, the budget, I was just providing a most current updated budget. We normally start looking at these and, really narrowing down how we want to budget funding sometime in like the March, April timeframe for the next fiscal year. But I was just giving you a snapshot of kind of where we are today. The last report was provided last week. It's November 30th. We're always about a month lag. If the budget analyst gets a chance to true up all the numbers. So this is the November report of where we are. Funds available, it's always a little misleading because we do know where some of those funds are actually being spent. It's just maybe they've not been encumbered in a PO yet. But for instance, the wayfinding signage, we know that people are going to spend money on the wayfinding signage. It shows available. It's just because we haven't begun that work. So I wanted to provide budget information just so you see where we are. And then also here's a cash flow that I wanted to include here as well that does project out. Although it looks like we're flush with money and the funds available, in reality, we have commitments over the next fiscal years, over the next few fiscal years, with Straz agreement, the Tampa Museum of Art, the Tampa Theater. So we're looking a little more free with our money come fiscal year 28. Once some of those commitments, you'll see where we're done with some of the projects. We've now included here Franklin Street. This is on the cash flow since it was approved. The Franklin Street partnerships project on Franklin Street is what we projected 25, 26, 27. So this is just an idea that although funds look great that are available, we're trying to forecast where some funding needs to come out of and how many fiscal years. So So you'll see Franklin study is now, trying to, or the Franklin Street project is in our budget now. This is the cash flow, just so I can keep sight of that, every year I gotta remember to put $2 million of what we are projected to receive in TIF dollars toward that project. And then, so the same goes for STRAS, those 3 major agreements. So, we're committed out for several fiscal years based on those agreements of how much we committed and how much we agreed to pay to reimburse per fiscal year. I know it's a lot of numbers, so if you ever want to just look at it and call me, I'm happy to talk through it more thoroughly, but we'll again dive into all these numbers out of that March, April timeframe when we were trying to figure out what we want to do with the fiscal year 26 budget. So we're in fiscal year 25 now. October 1 will begin fiscal year 26.
So the TIP revenues, is that in where it says city, or like, what comprises the city revenue, the port revenue?
Wait, ready?
I'm on the cash flow page.
Um,
Like, all those new buildings that they build are gonna start generating us revenue. That's built in, that's already in here, or?
Well, it's always a projected 5%. It's always projected that 5% will be the increase year over year.
Okay. So it's just taking this city
The
budget
city's-
amount and increasing each year by 5%.
Yeah,
We anticipate it'll be a lot higher, because that has to be projected.
So it's not actually projecting real projects, it's just a standard 5% for inflation.
yeah, it doesn't, it's not getting in the weeds of, okay, it's this project, it's going to create this, but it's.
Do you guys ever do those projections of like, these are the projects that?
Yeah, maybe our economic opportunity department would do that, but typically we just do a 5%. And then once we get the first June timeframe or so, we get an idea if we're accurate. Unfortunately, we went down.
This past year wasn't growth of 5%, so.
Yeah, we actually had,
Surprise.
we thought it was gonna be 11, but we only put 5. Thank God we only put 5 because it was even less than 5, which was surprising. So, so very conservatively, we project 5% based on like this fiscal year's TIP revenue. We'll just increase it 5% to allow us to start budgeting and, you apply, putting the monies in the line items. And then if it's not accurate, we either have to extract, or if we get 10%, then we have more money to put in, which is great.
Sure. So what is the revenue that is generated by the port? What is that money?
I'd have to ask Susan, our budget analyst.
And then I see the gasworks increment is in there though.
Well, GasWorks, it's solely reimbursed, but again, this is the cash flow, so this is just no money's gone to GasWorks. So not until the work is done and they seek reimbursement. I think that Susan added this into the cash flow just to keep in mind that monies will come in, and then after it'll basically come in and go out, but then up to a certain amount, which is $32 million is what they had requested, then 100% stays in the TIF. So, so for a few years, it'll come in, go out, but then after that, $32 million is paid out of the 3 CRAs. I know, it's even harder to explain. But yeah, I think it's just more of a radar sheet.
Yeah, so I see it here. She has 826 going in and then 826 going out. Right. So really.
Yeah, so I think we're just putting it there that, that is one project, only because we have an agreement that we are gonna keep track on their TIP revenue generation. Because, yeah, what they put into the TIP, we're gonna get back up to a limit, and then 100% of the TIP stays with the TIP.
Why are there 2 different numbers for fiscal year 25 adopted and revised for affordable housing?
That's on the practical.
Yeah, it's on the other side of it. 8.2 adopted, and then 22.9 revised for 25.
Yeah.
On the same page. So,
Sorry, pointed out.
affordable housing, and then, yeah, fiscal year 25, and also revised.
Those are for grants. So we maybe the amount of the grant. Yeah, I'm not sure what I'll have to ask. Somebody on that.
So that's a big difference.
Mhm. I don't know.
to spend for housing.
We're supposed to spend 30%.
Yeah, I know, it has to do
So
with
that's
something
the
with the
22,
30%.
right? Sounds more like 30%.
It's more than 30.
Well, is it broken down to this page here? Your affordable housing initiatives, it's at least broken down. So housing rehab and renovation went from 0 to 800. This is a big jump. Strategic acquisitions, non-core went from 2.9 to 14.
You know what, if you take 30% of 53 million, and you add 8 million from last year, it's 23.
Got it, yeah.
So it's like they rolled over what we allocated last year because they haven't spent it. And then they're adding another 30% to this year,
That makes sense.
I guess.
I love that. It's a lot of money to spend on affordable housing.
If they actually spend it, it would be great, but I don't see that.
We gotta have projects come to us for it, right? To be able to allocate.
Yeah.
But we tried and then they got. Okay.
Yeah, so we have B part assigned to affordable housing, so we are in grants that are available. So she'll be coming back to us to talk, like how to talk to current developers to do unit conversion, where if they have existing units, how we can help offset what they could make at regular market rates, how it would,
So
so
existing
developers.
existing buildings come to us.
Yeah, and should be existing unit conversions or new development conversion where maybe a set number of units that are already existing can switch over to affordable housing, or developers who are developing or would commit to developing a certain number of affordable housing units. So yeah, he's actively working on that. So I expect some of that money to start to get spent from the 30%.
All right, monthly meeting day and time.
Yeah, just wanted to pull the group again. I know we've talked about it before. It's this location and time start of 5:30. People like that. I'm just gonna ask every meeting. Just to make sure that we're all still, everybody's agreeable.
I wrote it in my calendar, can't change it now.
Oh, okay, in pen. So
I don't have it.
All right, that's all. I put it on everybody's agenda for January, just to make sure everybody's still good with day and time and location. Okay, and that's it. And, and then the open seats, we do have an at-large. We received a couple of applications. One for, the neighborhood association. Drana. And then another application.
Dan vet this drawn person.
I think Dan recommended and Kim recommended this person. So,
Who did we lose? We lost Dan.
Dan and Kim and Ryan. Right, so I have 2 applications of the 3 vacancies.
Okay.
So, so Donna will have a replacement, and Kim actually wrote, because I reached out to Kim, in fact, today. Funny enough, I reached out to Kim today to say, will you send a support letter that Donna is assigning Ryan Meisner as your representative? She sent that back, and then I was crossing the street. Dan was crossing the street. And I'm like, the 2 people that just came off, Kim and Dan, within an hour, I saw both of them. I'm like, I'm going to the downtown CAC meeting, Dan. He told us to have fun.
Yeah, sure.
So we're looking to, we just have one open seat that we still need to fill. That's an at-large seat if you know of anyone.
So at large means they.
They live, work, or own property. It used to, the policy used to read it has a strong interest or a strong,
That's very vague.
right, but
I'm
that's,
interested in that.
yeah, so,
Any segments of the community that we're looking to include,
Target.
like SPP or?
yeah, I mean, but we can talk about that as a group or, explore, I could do some targeted reaching out.
Just wondering, so, I mean, Kim and Dan were both involved in Drana, so we have somebody from Drana. What other organizations or businesses play a big role in TGH?
We have partnership, TDA.
717.
It would be really great to have somebody that had a background that was involved in the arts in some more significant way. I think like hearing Corey, yeah, I think that was great, having somebody that has that sort of background and perspective on things, and might be helpful to the group.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Well, you know anybody from like Gasparilla Festival of the Arts?
I know Ivy's really plugged in with that, so I'll make I'll shake that tree and see what we get there. I'm always, more business owners are always another great person or a good person to kind of bring kind of that ground level retail restaurant owner or someone adjacent to that field is kind of hospitality is another big attraction in downtown. So whether that's the hotels or something along those lines too.
If a business owner was on the CAC, would they still be able to apply for the commercial grants?
Yes, I was just getting more clarification because the standard, for the commercial grants that are standard, they can because there's no influence from the CAC.
We would vote on it.
We vote on it, but so they wouldn't be able to influence you. I'm trying to get clarification if a CAC member that applied for a special projects grant, which is kind of the out of the box type of grant, could apply if they're a CAC member. So that's still under legal review because they could influence the CAC since the CAC votes on it. The approval of a special projects grant.
That's what I was talking about with the CAS underpass is Friends of the Riverwalk applying for something like that. When we talked about that, that's under review.
Yeah, so I'm still waiting on clarification because I have 2 members from another CAC that have applied for special projects, but if can they be on the CAC when the CAC is going to vote? They would have to maybe.
Can you recuse yourself?
We've talked about that, but I have to get a legal opinion. I would just assume that they could recuse themselves, but we need still a legal opinion.
Yeah, when I was serving on the CAC years ago, I think there was a couple of times where just on the outskirts, it seemed like there might be a conflict of interest, and I just simply excuse myself from voting. So
Yeah, and that's usually how we've always handled business, but again, we're just making sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What about Adam DePiro? Is he still running the convention center still?
In the Tampa Bay?
Because he would be, from the perspective of trying to attract all of these people from around the country to come downtown, and how do we entice them to do that?
Yeah.
That's his business, is selling the convention center.
I was actually,
Somebody from his team if he's not able.
I was thinking of also maybe somebody from visit Tampa Bay.
That's where he worked.
Okay, that's correct.
Mary Beth's out of his office.
Yeah,
I am, it's right upstairs.
yeah.
Yeah, if you have any ideas, there is a at-large seat available.
Tell him that I threw his name out.
Well, Santiago's on our board
Oh,
now, so I can talk to Santiago. See
Yeah,
if there's somebody from his team.
Anybody that's really invested in the success of downtown's visitorship would be helpful.
Yeah, you have a different perspective.
Yeah, I think that's one that. Wacky, for sure.
Is he into the arts too? That would be a double.
No, Santiago's actually on the cultural asset mission committee.
But this gentleman that you just.
I don't know
spoke about-
Madam is.
Think
And
fingerprint
I wouldn't.
ones.
Santiago, look, he's got a million things on his plate right now.
Agree.
All
That's a good
right.
idea.
Yes, please send them my way or,
I'll email out. That's good.
thank you.
Welcome. Our next meeting is February the 4th. Is there any new business?
No new business.
I will not be here on the 4th.
No,
I'll
not.
be out of town. Good luck making forum. Better recruit somebody. I could vote on them.
Well, there's only 5 of us. We just need 3.
Yeah, three's the limit, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Three's
I'll be
more.
here.
3 of you here on the 4th to hear Captain Collins's proposal.
That's right, we have to vote on that. Okay, she'll be here.
I might be out of town as well.
Oh, I said it first.
Okay.
So,
Support whatever
just.
Captain College says.
Yeah.
Okay, just let me know.
I'll be here. Any announcements from CAC members?
No.
Yeah. All right, well, then we'll adjourn the meeting at 7:02 PM. There we go. I, did we have a vote? Did I just automatically get it?
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, for some reason, I thought you were saying
I
that.
just saw my
Yeah, but earlier, that's crazy.
We should probably have a vice chair.
No, it happened
Today.
It happened like,
Yeah.
when I think I probably just missed it because I was here when he about,
Well, I tried
it was
to,
probably
move my
4:30,
car.
4:30 today.
I went through my car and they were saying, no, you can't go through here. And I was like, that's weird.
So do you have a validation?
Yes.
I think it's $20 right now.
I can give you 30. Or one of these tickets.
Thank you.
Let me know if
Wanted
anything.
to borrow my parking
doesn't work.
pass because he's had.
Does anybody need
I was like,
a-
sorry, but I have a late meeting.
Even if we gotta pay.
For Christmas? They got enough, yeah. We don't give them everything they want, that's bad. Have a great day. Good to see you all.
Now we're poor.
You gotta train them to live a little disappointment.
Thanks, Courtney.
You're very welcome. Yes, get out of the door.
Yeah. Definitely got in. We should be able to get out.
Thank you, Courtney.
Welcome. I'll see you soon.
See you very soon.
I told you.